human experimentation, super soldier serums, healing factors, and so much more. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at one of the most underrated series of this season, Trigun Stampede. In today's video, I'm going to be analysing how realistic the science is that Dr. William Conrad uses in creating the villains in this series. And by the way, for those who haven't started watching this show, just get on it. The soundtrack alone is just awesome. And just before we begin, we're almost at 100,000 subscribers, so if you are enjoying the videos so far on the channel, give this video a like and consider subscribing to join the rest of the club. Otherwise, if you're ready, let's begin. Now, everyone's going to have their own opinion on this, but I think this is some of the best CGI that I've seen in anime so far. What do you guys think? But in this scene in episode 5, Vash and his team have returned to a village and he comes across this Atom Smasher type character who seems to remember who he is. Interestingly, this character does actually feature in the original anime and he goes by the name of Monev the Gale. Much like in the original anime, he's fully armoured up and hell-bent on killing Vash. But it's his latest characterization that we'll be focusing on in today's video, and his name in this scene is Rollo. So here's a bit of backstory to Rollo's character. We see that he overhears his family state that he's going to be a sacrifice to help save the village. Interestingly, a defining feature of this character's design is that he has this staining to the side of his face, and what we would call this in the medical profession is a port wine stain. Now, it's not necessarily a sign of an underlying disease, but there are some rare genetic conditions where it can be a feature. I'm going to assume it's some foreshadowing and may well have some relevance later on in the story.
大丈夫? やっと見つけた。君がロロ。僕、病気なんだ。大人になる前に死んじゃうんだって。困った時は僕を思い出して。必ず助けに行くから。
Ah, okay, so this is how Rollo and Vash's story intertwined. We hear Rollo telling Vash about his life-limiting condition, and Vash is promising that he will one day return with some help. Now, regarding his sickness, we haven't really been given too much detail, but I wonder if it's a genetic condition that he's been born with, and hence that isn't just a birthmark, it might be a sign of one of these rare conditions. And one of these might be something like Sturge-Weber syndrome. Now, this is a rare condition that affects your nervous system, and it causes progressive blindness, increasing seizures, and finally paralysis. So if it's something like this, it doesn't look too good for Rollo. So here we see Rollo being taken as a sacrifice by Dr. William Conrad, who bears an uncanny, remarkable resemblance to me. I promise you we're not related. And here we also see them injecting some sort of sedative or anaesthetic into Rollo's neck. Now, as a warning to anyone who's undergoing any surgery, if your anaesthetic gets administered like this, and you get carried to the operating table like that, you may want to check that doctor's credentials.
この薬は体細胞を強化して作り直し、肉体の代謝を極限まで加速させる。
Okay, so here we hear that Dr. Conrad's serum is going to help to rebuild Rollo from a cellular level. And in the process, this is going to accelerate his metabolism and make him far stronger. To me, this sounds like a super soldier serum. But is it possible to create a serum like this? And how would it even work? Well, for it to be working at a cellular level, it would have to be targeting how you go about producing your cells, and this is determined by your DNA. So, by the sounds of it, Dr. Conrad seems to be meddling with gene therapy whilst experimenting on Rollo. Now, gene therapy is a real thing, and it works by turning off or turning on genes found in your DNA, and this manifests in a change in your body. For example, we're aware that certain gene expression results in the colour of your eyes, and theoretically, as an embryo, we can perform some gene therapy to help you design a baby with the eye colour you desired. And this is just one characteristic. Imagine if you could manipulate someone's height, muscle mass, or even their intelligence. Now, the reason we don't implement this science presently is because we don't completely understand how it works. We don't understand the long-term consequences of gene modification, and also there are ethical questions as to how far you should be able to design a human being. For Dr. Conrad, on the other hand, it looks like he's a scientist with no boundaries, and he's forgotten the one rule of being a doctor: make sure you do no harm.
体が適合すればおそらく君の病気も治せるだろう。もちろん多少の代償は伴うが、少なくとも病によって死ぬことはなくなる。
Okay, so it looks like this serum is also going to be curing Rollo of his disease, and this is how I've seen gene therapy utilised in medicine for both the prevention and treatment of conditions. One example of its successful application is in the condition of severe combined immunodeficiency. Here, gene therapy has been used to successfully treat patients by correcting the gene responsible for the disease. Now, also Dr. Conrad says that there's going to be some side effects with utilising this serum, and I suspect that's with relation to how he's trying to make modifications to Rollo's physiology. But even in real life, gene therapy doesn't come without its own risks, and an example of one of these risks is that the gene therapy might affect cells or genes that weren't the intended target, and as a result lead to some dire consequences, like turning on an oncogene, which can lead to cancer. So I guess it's important to recognise that although it's very cool and exciting, we don't fully understand gene therapy as a science, and a lot more research is needed before we can safely offer it to our patients. Oh gosh, so this looks like quite an aggressive transformation for Rollo, which I suspect is due to the acceleration of his metabolism. I think what Dr. Conrad's done here is that he's increased Rollo's metabolism by turning on genes that produce more growth factors. And the types of substances I'm talking about are things like human growth factor, which lead to bone, cartilage and muscle growth. You've also got things like insulin-like growth factor that increases your cell division. And then you've got the sex hormones like testosterone, which increase your bone mineral density and your muscle density. And then finally, your thyroid hormone, which helps to increase your metabolism. And it's interesting because all of this is theoretically possible. In fact, our bodies go through a similar process to this as we go through the growth spurt during puberty. It looks like what Dr. Conrad is doing is using this process and taking it to the extreme.
インプラント端子を埋め込むことで感情を肥大させ、運動能力を加速度的に発達させることができる。憎悪という感情はワムズの毒腺にも勝る猛毒だ。
Ah, okay, so Dr. Conrad has also put a chip into Rollo's brain, and he's doing this to heighten his emotions, with the idea that it's going to improve his athletic abilities. God, he's seeming more and more like a cyborg. But how would a chip that's been implanted in the brain have this effect? Well, you'll be wanting it to perform two different functions. The first of which is the creation of endorphins. Now, endorphins are those happy chemicals that are produced in the body in response to exercise. And they're very similar in structure and function to the drug morphine. They can help to produce a sense of euphoria, they can also help to dampen down your sense of pain, and bring a general sense of calm over the body. These three combined benefits make you feel like you're invincible, allowing you to push yourself to the extremes of your physical abilities. Now, if the chip also works on your frontal cortex to try to remove your sense of inhibition, this will help to relieve you of thoughts and feelings of self-doubt, which might otherwise hold you back from performing at your best. I mean, that's the way I'd design it if I was Dr. Conrad.
5年間も耐えたのは彼が初めてだ。今度こそ。
どうせまた失敗作よ。
I'm not surprised that Rollo was the only success story in the last 5 years. This is why you don't choose to be the first one they operate on. But you know, I kind of prefer the origin stories of the villains in this series. They're all more created monsters through science, rather than these crazed psychopathic criminals roaming the desert. Let me know what you prefer down below. Oh gosh, so I guess here's where we see the negative impact of that unfiltered emotion when Rollo confronts his mother and she calls him a monster. We've got to remember that Rollo is going through a physiological response similar to that of a roid rage, hence why he meets her with aggression when she rejects him. Okay, so here we see that Rollo has some additional serum impregnated in his suit. And after he takes several gunshot wounds to the back, these release and these miraculously heal themselves. But is there a theoretical way of producing a healing factor using gene therapy? Let me explain using cancer as an example. Now, the unique attribute to cancer is that you get uncontrolled, rapid cellular growth. And it becomes harmful when this cellular growth comes in the way of your essential functions. Now, we've actually got genes in our DNA that encode for cancer's development, and these can be triggered by things in our environment, like radiation or cigarette smoke, and we call these oncogenes. On the other hand, we also have genes that help to protect us from cancer, such as tumour suppressor genes. And it's this constant interplay between these oncogenes and tumour suppressor genes that keep us alive and healthy. Now, a healing factor needs to work quickly. You need rapidly dividing cells like found in a cancer to heal a wound. Otherwise, you'll bleed to death. So imagine if you had a serum that could allow you to turn on these oncogenes and then the tumour suppressor genes at your will to help heal you from any wound you sustain. That could explain what we're seeing here in this scene. Oh, this whole story is just so tragic. From Rollo's origin story to him killing his family and now going on a rampage trying to kill Vash. But you know, I do like Rollo's character design here with this skull-like mask and these weapons mounted on his back. It's very reminiscent of Adam Smasher from the Edgerunner series. In fact, I like all of the characters' designs except for Vash's hair. Why didn't they just stick with the sticking up hair from the original series? Oh god, and this is almost a mercy killing here, as Rollo takes a bullet to the head as Vash reaches out desperately to help. And it's sad because it appears as though in his final moments that Rollo regressed back to that child he once was, recognising that Vash had returned for him. But it reminds me of that phrase, to live as a monster or to die as a good man. Now, although this was the end of Rollo's story, it's not the end for Dr. Conrad, as there's several more of his villainous creations out there on the hunt for Vash. So if you'd like me to break down the origins of any further characters, just let me know down below. Otherwise, if you're keen to see more videos like this, then you might enjoy one of these two. Otherwise, as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
That's just beautiful.